Hello guys, this is Bob. Okay, today we're going to be talking about modern schools versus olden days schools. Now, my claim on this is how the difference between olden days schools and modern day schools is drastically different, and how it is better and how it is worse. First off, let's talk about just a basic history, right? Some sources, such as historycooperative.org, say that it goes back to about 3000 BCE, or somewhere around there, which is very old. That's like ancient people, their their lives are much different. They aren't nearly as advanced, and is simply simple ways to, as typically boys, because women weren't considered all that special yet. It was a way to have boys become better in terms of very likely literacy and writing and other such basic things like your physical stuff. This generic learning, probably, well, yes, took some time, was basic just to become probably a man. That's more cultural, that's more just trying to become a better person. The intention was to help boys become to men and have society actually grow. Because having actual literate and able to write people is very good for being able to expand knowledge just in general to help with more learning, but it's also good at being able to command, especially because there's lots of wars and there's lots of conflict, and other countries needed to talk to each other, especially with different languages. This was the original intention, roughly. Now, when we go to like modern day, like we're gonna say right now, this is 2026. Right now, I'm recording. It's the 8th of May. Right. Modern day is far more drastic. Obviously, right now, I'll kind of dox myself, I guess. Right now, I am in geometry. I am learning chemistry. I am in English 11, right? This kind of stuff is pretty normal for today's time. The difference being, is that it's less cultural, and it's more so a necessary thing to survive, to, well, not even live. You have to go above and beyond and be completely different from the average person to live. And talking about surviving versus living is its own video, but it simply just goes like this. In modern schools and how modern schools were designed, 99.99, however many nines you want to add, percent of people are going to end up far worse off, and they're going to ruin their ability to have a real life, to be able to make real money and become wealthy. This is what modern school does. A YouTube channel called Hollow Progress uh, shows this very well. And this is my main source for a lot of the new stuff. However, there's other. But to explain this, you have to understand that in the early times of modern schooling was supposedly, at least in America, was a lot understood and worked upon from a very Prussian style of learning and schooling, which is a lot of how a lot of soldiers, like German soldiers, ended up being in the military and being able to do what they were told exactly. And that's a lot of why, like the soldiers in World War II, all the quote Nazis, they were all like they did not stop. They did exactly what they were told. They did it with honor. They did it knowing that they were trying to fight for the glory of their country. How could people do this despite doing such horrible things? It's not because they were necessarily stupid. It's not because they were arrogant. It's because that's how they were taught, and that's how they were forced. They were forced to just be a cog in the machine, supposedly. This kind of way of schooling works in being able to make a bunch of people just good at one area of things. Even if they can still be flexible, but they're still all in just one area-ish of expertise. Being able to just do what you're told and do the work. People in America saw this and they decided to do this for their own. This, however, was obviously not for trying to train soldiers, at least not very specifically. Trying to train for soldiers right after World War II would have probably been very controversial and would have definitely not helped with anything. Well, yes, there's been a lot of developments on like trying to do student-centered learning, like Montessori schools. I have been in a Montessori school, and well, yes, you learn more of what you learn, but you technically learn less, from my experience. However, there is still that there. However, majority of schools, like the school I'm at now, is under the same constant curriculums and test-based everything. This is what modern schools came from. They came from people in America that saw how the Prussians were doing it. This original way of how the Prussians were doing it ended up giving Americans the theory, the hypothesis of that they can force people to do all this work and just be good at a couple things, and kind of force their ability to think, throw it out the window. This is very common with like things like Henry Ford. In the beginning, making cars was expensive and they sold for a lot. It was a rich person thing. As more people became a part of the assembly line, as Henry Ford ended up making, the idea and the theory of the prices dropped for cars because you could automate it with people. But how do you get people to work 10, 12-hour shifts of just putting a screw in one spot, that same spot, and just doing that all day? How can you get people to do that? Because people aren't going to just willingly do that because they can. Would you want to do that? Especially for low pay? I would think not. So yes, answering that question, what they decided to do was figure out as many ways as possible to ruin the ability for people to think and only have the very best come out on top. And with such a small number of people that have the availability to come out on top and be resilient, that is why the modern schooling system still works. Let me explain. If you think about like modern schooling, or like if you're in school, let's say you're in school right now, even if it's college, if it's high school, whatever. Let's say you have one class. Well, I'll just use chemistry for mine, just so I can be real with you guys. Taking chemistry, we have to do a lot of work. Like, now that I'm almost done with the year, it is a lot easier, and I've actually learned, right? However, in the beginning, it was work, 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 learn work, learn work, 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 learn work. And that's all it was. That kind of system where you're constantly having to do a ton of work and consistently just get stuff done, especially considering that at the beginning of the year my teacher wasn't necessarily the nicest. I mean, I'm not saying she was playing out rude and that she's like a part of some crooked system herself. I'm just saying that educationally, teachers are designed and forced to apply things in such a way that that ruins students' ability to do things because they do what they're told, and if they don't do exactly what they're told, they are going to get directly hurt. If you end up not coming to class, you can get either A, in-school suspension or out-of-school suspension. Now, mind you, in-school suspension is absolutely horrible because you're forced to do work all day to ruin your morale just so you get stuff done. And if you get out-of-school suspension, you can't do any work, so now you have to catch up more, which makes it feel like a punishment for not just doing exactly what you're told. So this puts us into the trap. If you don't do exactly what you're told, then you are going to end up being worse off. But if you do exactly what you're told, you're going exactly into what they want. They want you to think that you just have to consistently do work for the same person every single day, or majority of days, and just get work done. This is what that Prussian schooling turned into in America. We give out standardized testing, we give out constant work, just so that people can be on the assembly line. If they can sit there all day doing lots of work, whether it's matters or not, then they can work a job that is, they spend all day doing pretty much the same thing over and over again. That is the modern schooling system, and this has been said so many times. You've probably been yelling at your screen if you're managing to get this far, saying that, well, you're just another guy. Yes, however, I want to give an actual history. And this is a little bit of an actual history, far different from my normal videos. Now, I'm going back to the Montessori and how student-centered. There are people who did go away from this and tried to make it student-led and make it for the students. And a lot of those schools did actually end up making something out of it. Something. Especially stuff like STEM. I was also in STEM for a year. It works, it's nice, but it doesn't truly train you. It doesn't give you real experience. But then again, the real experience is exactly what is good for working in the assembly line, being able to do those jobs over and over. So you're taking away your ability to do that in a world where you need to do that because that's how it was exactly made. The entirety of a country, and this is just my personal opinion, the entirety of a country is based upon exactly what the people know and learn. When you make the people dumb, you can have a country that works exceptionally well. They may get rich, they get everything they want. This is why Nazi Germany worked for a long time. This is why World War I Germany worked for a long time. This is why for a lot of just dictators in general work for a very long time. This is why the Soviet Union, which it wasn't just one dictator, it was a bunch of different people. It worked for such a long time, even though the ideas and the people actually leading it was not the greatest. It still worked, though, for a long time, until eventually people had enough of the suppression. And truthfully, I think that is the only reason, because when you down the people so bad that they can't take it anymore, then they start having a mental health crisis, and this mental health crisis changes how people perceive the world. We are in the middle of that right now in America. This is what we are understanding. This system is actually going too far, and it's too much for the kids. It's not too much for me, but also I've escaped that. Really, 1 year of even STEM is enough to escape, just to get that little bit of time to understand things. How things actually work in schooling. When you realize this, you can go off in so many directions and learn how to do things. I have A's in all of my classes, which is exactly what they want out of a person to be able to show that they're a great worker. They can just do stuff. That's exactly what they want you to do. And sure, technically, with how my school is, I technically got a 4.0 on the first semester. However, I barely did work. I only did work at home if I absolutely had to, because it was a bigger project and there was something I just needed to do. This kind of going about it does help, and not even that. I don't waste my time scrolling. I don't waste, well, most of the time. I have gotten back into that trend, and I do need to stop it, and I realize that. I'm trying to get better. But you hear those words, I'm trying to get better. That means I'm actively doing action. This is exactly what the schools don't want. And right now, I'm hiding in plain sight. Most people say I'm just a really good worker, and I'm going to get places because I can do just doing this work. But right now, I'm testing out things. I want to go into cybersecurity, which I'm probably going to make a lot of videos on that, because those videos, not only A, get a lot of views, it seems, but also I have a lot I want to talk about it in genuine me-ness, I guess. So, not trying to go too far off topic, I know I just did a lot of ranting, but here's the bottom line. Old schooling was about culture and trying to do things and just trying to make your society better. Okay? The difference between that to now is that in modern day, with how things played out, with how what people in America saw in Prussia, is that the world works better when you have a bunch of people, or the country works better when there's a bunch of people that are just constantly working, even if they're not getting much out of it. And yeah, this is how the government really functions, a modern government. And I could say a lot of bad things about modern government. Don't get me wrong, but this is the world that we have started, or we're born into, considering Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And I've talked about how Gen Z and Gen Alpha are going to completely change politics. But this is the world we are in now, and we need to figure out how to get rid of this now, as soon as we can. What I am seeing, though, is for a solution is kids not doing anything. They're not doing work. They're completely rebelling, and they're getting in tons of trouble, legal trouble. People are going, well, I don't know if anyone's going to juvie yet. I'm not sure if anyone's gone to juvie in my school. However, people have gotten like 180 days suspensions. People have gotten police trouble. They've gotten all sorts of stuff that ends up ruining their ability to live. Okay, it makes it so they have to survive, not live. And that's not even considering how every little thing is completely managed. Okay, they're not even hiding it anymore, how much it is close to just an assembly line. We had even a sing meeting in the auditorium, like a bunch of kids, it was for our Tiger Time, which is just homeroom, that they call it Tiger Time here because we're the Tigers, whatever. But their entire speech during that, for us, was that we just need to start doing things. We need to just do what we're told. That is pretty much exactly what they said. Do what we're told. Stop doing all this stupid stuff. And well, yes, do I agree with vaping? Do I agree with drugs? Do I agree with getting into fights? No. However, what they are failing to see is this is our way, modern way at least, of getting rid of the problem. Now, right now, we are fighting fire with fire, and it's not working. Truly, I don't think it's working, because we're getting more legal action. We're having, like in Missouri here, it's a state law, no phones, it's punishable up to like legal stuff. Like if you have multiple offenses of having your phone out caught and it gets taken away to the office, I'm pretty sure you might be able to have like your phone like permanently taken away or something like that. And then also you can like go to like juvie or something because you had your phone out in class or during the school day. I want that to sink in. Being able to potentially go to juvie for having a phone and using it during the school day a couple times. We'll say 5. 5 sounds like a reasonable number considering my school. Using your phone can send you to juvie. I'm intentionally leaving that pause in there too. Like, I hope that was excruciatingly painful to like bear through there. This is the kind of stuff where even I have personal experience. Like, I just did quick Google searches to find some, information when, .govs.orgs. And then I was also watching a YouTube video. And I was more of just an opinion based, like this is, for the most part. Right? It's all I needed to do, and I realized, oh my gosh, it's more than just people being mad, more than people just giving claims. It's the truth of how things actually work. And this is something that is upon majority of countries now, like Britain and Japan. Their systems, while they're probably less drastic, I think the only one close to America would probably be Britain in drasticness for a modern democracy, right? A modernized democracy. And Britain is pretty bad, but they're actually, it seems like they're trying. It seems like it. But that's the thing. We're at the point in time where we're going through so many changes in how the world works that history is has already been made. History was made 10 days in the future. Right, 10 days from now, I'm sure things could be likely very different. And so much is going on so quickly. I don't know when we're going to be able to fix this. What I would want, in this part, you honestly, I wouldn't even be that mad if you clicked off the video at this point. But what I think would be great would be trying to have a perfect balance between the modern standardized testing and all that and like Montessori schools. Being able to actually learn and do work while doing things yourself and having your own active learning for yourself. Because like right now, obviously, this has been an age-old thing of needing a certain amount of credits, especially in certain areas. They've gotten a lot more specific, and you need to like have a majority of your credits be in very specific areas. Like I need to have like fine arts, practical arts, and obviously then you have your social studies, math, science, whatever. But you have all these specifics that you need to do, and they're trying to just get us to only do exactly what they want us to do. This is what I'm seeing. This isn't just me talking and ranting about things that I think are going to happen. This is what's happening to me. Okay? This could be the start of an insane movement. This could be just 3 people watching it and agreeing with me. This could be 3 people just clicking off right away. What I just want to say is that we need a good balance, and right now it's not there, just like several other video ideas I've had. One last thing I just want to put out is that there are still communities, like indigenous communities, that are still doing this kind of, or like doing the old style of stuff. Like I was talking about like 3000 BCE, before Common Era, or BD, before death, if you're a Christian or religious, whatever. But like indigenous communities, or like just people, right? Like if you think Native Americans, I don't know what other kind of people there would be worldwide, because there's definitely plenty. But they're keeping their stuff a lot like how I was talking about with like the Greeks and stuff, how it was just trying to build up people's ability to actually work and live, right? Being able to do more than just survive, being able to live and have a genuine community and being able to do things. There are still places like that. Now, they are protected places specifically because, well, everyone would get mad at the government if they decided to get rid of indigenous communities like Native American places. At least that would be for America, right? So we can still do that. If we can just learn how to be more advanced than the indigenous communities, yes, we do need that in the modern world. I'm not saying that we don't need to be advanced and try to do things. But it's like Arts of Iron 4, you need to have individual excellence, and you need to have the people that are willing to just do those jobs where they keep doing stuff. But they also need to have the people that want to be the pros, the people that build the businesses, but also the people that realize they want to do all that stuff, but they realize that they can't. They're not like that. Truthfully, they are better working for someone else, but they can also at that point, make a deal with a person that is really good and able to make a business, be able to be a good entrepreneur. They can work with them and make profits. That is something that people don't often see. Working with entrepreneurs is very good money if they end up going, and you can do this to tons of people by working for them. I'm not going to go any farther than that. I've already gone off topic. Have a good day, y'all. Please take something from this. But yeah, toodaloo.